You know how we do, baby. That's how we roll.
That's how we roll. Can I sing again? Rolling, 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 rolling. There you go.
Done. What's the week been saying?
The week has been quiet this week. I told you last week, didn't I? I had a really I get these really strange migraines every so often called ocular migraines. I'll tell you about those in a little bit. But I got one last Sunday. I haven't had one for a couple of years, and they almost a bit like a warning signal for me to slow down and stop. And they're weird in a way in that they're kind of very visual ocular migraines, and they're quite rare apparently. And what happens is you get this very, very strange visual, and then you get this sort of very slow headache come on, and then it goes away after about 2 hours. But what it does for me is it tells me that I'm probably a little bit stressed, a little bit tired, and it's just basically signaling to me to slow down. It generally happens in school holidays, and this week has been the Easter holidays, so I wasn't going to work anyway, but it tells me that you're doing the right thing by resting and slowing down. So I have literally done nothing this week. I've sat on the sofa and I've watched TV, which has been quite hard for me, and done as little as I can. Obviously, being a mother, that's quite tricky, but I've done as little as I possibly can. And it's helped. I feel a lot better, and that's generally how it goes. So I've done no work, nothing.
Good.
And I'm actually not nutrition wise. I haven't been as strict as I normally have, and I've been okay with it all. Actually, I've been. But I could have got really panicked about, oh my God, you've had like Easter chocolate and you've had roasts and you've had all this stuff and you haven't really been tracking anything. But actually, I've just been like, nah, it doesn't matter. I needed to do it, not think about every single meal and what's going to happen. Do you prep your meals like I prep my meals? Do you meal prep or?
Yeah,
You
pretty much for
do?
most of the week. Yeah.
Yeah, the same.
Like, actually, I want to ask you, if a couple of years ago was the last time you had the ocular headache, how often were they happening? How regularly were they happening prior to that?
So I think I've only had 3 or 4 in my time, but so the one happened a couple of years ago, and then one before that maybe a year, and then one before that was 6 months. So they don't happen very often. But as lots of people have pointed out to me, they are rare, but lots of people have heard of them, and they were like, that's a stress signal. That's like your body's very tense and tight.
Right.
I actually did ID one of the immaculate dissection courses around the time that I had one. I think it was the neck and upper body. And Kathy said that can be because of a kind of the way your head is positioned and the way your neck muscles are positioned. And it was true. I was kind of out like that. And
Head tilted.
Yeah, the head was tilted. And so she did some pendulums on me, which are where you basically pin one of the areas and you move the head, the muscles within the neck and the head through their range of motion, basically. And that does really help. And I can feel it, like I can feel the tightness from last week. But often that tightness is from potentially stress-related things where I'm clenching my jaw and got my shoulders up. So this week it was just about relaxing, not worrying about training or nutrition, and just taking it easy. And I feel a lot better now. Like I feel less tight round my shoulders and my neck, and I feel a lot better for resting. And I might even do a few more days, to be honest, of just looking after myself.
Yeah, cool. That's good. So is that like the one sign that you have where you're like, okay, I'm pushing myself too far?
There's that, yes. Definitely, like when that comes on, that's a big signal. But other things that happen to me is when I'm training, my heart rate's all over the show. So what I know when I'm about to burn out properly, my heart rate tends to go all over the show, and it just stays elevated for quite a long time. I get more breathless, and I'm just phenomenally exhausted when I'm about to hit burnout, which often happens towards the end of the school year around July, when I've been really going through it with sessions and it's just all the other stuff around it. I just hit a level of exhaustion that I can't get out of, and and I find it hard to focus within my sessions. There's a lot of that, and I just find training phenomenally hard. And I know that when I start hitting that where I really don't want to train, that I've started to like head into burnout land. So yeah, so it's that you just shut down and you stop. It's like, I know we've talked in past podcasts about how I find it really hard to rest and take time out to rest, and I feel guilty. But when my body does that, it's like, no, everything else just stops, and I just shut down for a little bit and I stop doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, okay. And is it like when you're talking about the heart rate, is it something that you just feel through interoception, or you are like tracking it?
I'm tracking it, and it just stays elevated. So it'll stay up within the 180s, and that's no good for me. So I don't like it, even though I feel fine. It's like when my heart rate's constantly elevated around 185, 186. I'm like, no, that can't be at that rate. So because I'm quite good at getting my heart rate down. Like when I stop and recover, my heart rate comes down quite quickly, which I'm sure it does with you. But when I'm in stages of where I'm starting to hit burnout, that doesn't happen as well. It won't come down as quickly. And then that makes me nervous. Like I start to get panicky because I can see it on my heart rate monitor or whatever. And then that makes it worse. So then I'm like, no, just stop everything. Just come down, just rehydrate and rest, sleep as much as I can. Sure. Yeah. And that's another thing I've been doing is, sorry, go on.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, I've been sleeping in this week a lot because I can, but that's been really cool to be able just to have that time where I'm not having to get up at 6 a.m. every single day and get everyone up and out. So that's a really important thing. Like if you can rest and get beyond the time and schedule that you have to get up, that makes a huge difference for me anyway. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're just catching up on rest. You're just letting it happen.
Yeah.
That's so that's interesting. Like if you didn't wear a heart rate monitor, what would be the telltale sign for you? Would you be able to detect like, okay, I can feel like my heart is pumping hard in my chest, or would there be so there's the recovery element as well. He's like, oh, I'm just not recovering as much, or would your rate of perceived exertion go up as well?
I think it would probably go up. Yeah, I think the RPE would go up. I don't think I would recover as quickly. I'm just trying to think, like, if you're doing some sort of HIIT or like stair circuit, I do a lot of like running up and down stairs and things like that. I just don't think I would recover as quickly. I think I'd start to feel anxious and panicky. Now, generally, when I'm overworked, that's my almost like my go-to feeling is that I feel anxious and panicky and I can't breathe as well. I don't feel in that kind of calm, but what is it where you're in that kind of calm but hyped up state where what you probably know it better than me. Alert and calm, thank you. I don't feel like that. I just feel like everything's just kind of. Another thing that happens to me is it's almost like I feel like a strobe's going off in my body and I can't, it's like it just feels uncomfortable and agitated. So when that starts to happen, especially when I'm training, that's signaling me that it's all getting a little bit too much for me.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I'm trying to get to the heart of that as well, because it's about signals that you can pay attention to when you know you're not performing as well as you could be. Or rather, these are signals you need to pay attention to say to yourself, okay, I need to take a break, or I need to relax, I need to chill out, I need to not do the level of intensity that I'm doing. I've been currently going at. So that's what I wanted people to kind of pick up on is like, hey, here's some examples of what you can pay attention to within your own body, so that you know that okay, you're redlining a little bit, because you want to build up that sense of self-awareness, that interoception, so you can pay attention to the cues that your body is giving you, and also start labeling them as well, like understanding what those cues are by labeling them in the way that you've done. Is like, okay, anxious is a big one. That anxiety is like, okay, I know I'm feeling anxious. You know, so if you say like, okay, how am I actually feeling during this workout? You go, oh, it's a little bit of anxiety kicking in. Then you go, right, that doesn't normally happen. Something's up. And I think that's important. And, you know, it's pretty cool to, with rate of perceived exertion as well, sometimes That's an interesting one. There's a bit of variety in that, because you can feel like your effort level is the same as normal, but your heart rate, let's use that as the example, just starts to go through the roof. And I can testify to that in a recent example as well, where like a little while back I was feeling a bit run down, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to rest, and that's my thing, is like I rest it off, and then I'm fine again. So like within about 48 hours it usually takes, but then the day after I was like, okay, I'm ready to go for a run again. And then I go for the run, and it's my like normal pace. It's a relatively relaxed pace. I'm trying to stay in like a 70 to 80% max of my maximum heart rate in that zone to work the cardio zone. And I track that, right? So I'm like looking at the data on my phone to make sure that I'm not pushing it too much.
Yeah.
So the pace that I was going at, which I know keeps me generally in that range, this time around, I was pushing 180 beats per minute each time. So I'm in that 90 to 100% of my heart rate category. But I was like, I don't feel like I'm putting in that much effort. What the hell's going on? So I felt like I was doing my normal level of effort, but my heart was just working way harder than it's used to, supposed to be in that level of effort that I'm putting in. And it was just basically because I wasn't fully recovered yet, right? And my body was like, oh, you're not ready to do it at the level that you normally do. So my heart rate was just at a jacked up level. And so then, because I'm getting this live data, so I'm looking at my phone and picking up on what my heart rate's saying. And I'm confused. I'm like, I don't feel like I'm working that hard. I mean, the level of breathlessness that would take for me to be working at that level is it's just not there. So what the hell's going on? So then I started paying attention to some other things. I was like, sometimes what happens to me is I can actually start feeling my heart beating harder, and it kind of feels like it's in my throat right here. So I'm like, okay, I must be pushing a certain level, which is not where I think I'm at, but that's where my body is at. If it feels like I'm getting that kind of sensation where my heart is beating through my throat, then I'm going too hard. So what I did was I was okay, second thing I did was I want to make sure that it's not a problem with my measurement, the thing that measures for me, which is I use Whoop and get the heart rate variability data. And so I just slowed down, I just stopped, and I just walked, and I got my heart rate back down to a respectable level, just what I'd get when I'm walking. I was like, okay, I'm going to go back up again, I'm going to go slow, and then I'm going to keep it at the rate that I'm used to. But then it just went back up to that high 170s and then 180, and I was like, right, yeah, okay, so this is like, it went back to a level where I would expect it to be when I'm walking. And when I started running and putting a little bit more exertion on my body, it was like, nah, you're going to work harder than you're used to today, because you're just not physically there for it yet. Your body, my body was not prepared it wasn't prepared to work at that level. It needed to work harder to be training at the same level that it's used to, because it just was still a little bit run down. And that was interesting. So there was that difference between how much effort I feel like I'm putting in and what the data was actually telling me. So I had to try and pay attention to other things that were going on, which for me, the biggest giveaway was, okay, I feel like my heart is beating a bit harder through the chest, or is coming up into my throat, right? I need to slow it down a little bit. So there's things that you want to pay attention to about your body, so that you know that you're redlining it. And if you continue doing that, you're going to crash hard, and you're going to need to take a week, 10 days off. And for most people, that's just not possible. It's just, you don't want to be doing that, because life doesn't life won't stop. Everything, we can't stop. So we want to notice that we're approaching that level, and then taper things right down and go, okay, I'm just going to go at 50% of the effort level, so I can keep things moving forward but not screw myself up, and then ramp it back up again when I start to feel better for it.
Definitely. And just what you were saying about how you track stuff, I think that's a really important thing to talk about as well. It's like, you track stuff. I used to have Whoop as well. I don't have Whoop at the moment, but it's a really useful tool to have some sort of way of tracking your heart rate variability, your sleep, your respiration, but also when you're training as well. I think it's a really useful tool to have. Yes, your rate of perceived exertion, which is how you feel within your body, your interoception, but actually having a tool, which I think most people have access to or could get access to see what their heart rate's doing, to know what sort of range they need to be in. I think it's a really valuable tool, because if you are trying to push yourself, or if you are coming back into exercise after recovery, like you were just saying, it's useful to know that, you feel, or you're doing the same amount, but you're feeling, was it you're doing the same amount, but you're feeling more exertion, or the other way around?
Yeah, it was like same pace. I know the distance that I'm
That's
training,
it.
that I'm running. I know the pace that I'm going at, because it's telling me there, and I know what that pace usually correlates to in terms of my heart rate level, and it was a lot higher than normal.
You were just struggling more. So I think
Yes.
that's a really useful tool to have for anyone starting training, in the middle of training. I'm sure people that do train anyway have some form of thing that they can refer to, using your phone, heart rate monitor, anything. But if you don't, it's definitely something to consider when you are training. Even if it is you're doing breath work or Pilates or yoga or whatever it is that you're doing, or strength training, it's a valuable tool to have, because you can see what your body's doing and how it's coping with what you're doing. And if you are looking at stepping up your training or doing things like HIIT or martial art or running or anything like that, it's really valuable to see how you're coping with that sort of training and that sort of intensity as well. And I think if you are experienced, like, yes, I can tell, much like you, there is a level of, I just feel, I suppose for me, it's like I start to feel anxious, but maybe that is me feeling that my heart is coming up into my throat, and I don't like that feeling. So it manifests as a bit of anxiety in me. But yeah, I think it's valuable to know when to rest as well, or to take it down. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people I know that train don't like taking it down and don't like resting and hate having to do that. And I'm one of them. It's like I dislike not having to train, or the fact that I can't train. But this week it was like, nah, just don't do it. Don't even try. Just rest, and you're going to come out of that stronger for sure.
Exactly.
Something else that I was thinking about when you said stuff, that was it. I think it's just the whole mindset around training as well. It's like we're used to training at a certain level, and as I was just saying, a lot of other people are used to training at a certain level, and it is having to change that mindset a little bit, isn't it, as well, around that, and dialing it down. Yeah, you've got to be more flexible. And that's something that I've used to find really hard, is to be flexible around my training. Like, no, I've got to train, I've got to do that. But I think nowadays I'm like, if you miss a week, it's not a problem. Your body and your health and you being able to work is more important than smashing out 5K, 10K, whatever it is, or prepping for whatever. So I think it is just having that mindset, that flexible mindset around training as well, and knowing that you can't do everything sometimes, and that other things take priority, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And what you said about tracking there earlier is useful, because you're getting objective data, so that you can match that up with your subjective feeling as well. Because sometimes, like I've shown there, is like what I'm feeling isn't necessarily what my body's actually going through. And by matching that objective data up with our subjective feeling, or you can start to get a better awareness of your body as well. Like, what does it actually go through? So it taught me to dig deeper to understand what's actually going on with my body. Is okay, well, on my normal level of effort, in the effort level that I was putting in didn't match up with the effort level my body was actually, the effort level that I thought I was putting in, what I was feeling, did not match up with the effort level that my body was actually going through. And there was a disconnect. So when I could see that in real time, it forced me to dig deeper, because I'm generally, I would say, I'm pretty in tune with what's happening with my body. So when I noticed that, I was like, okay, no, I need to pay a little bit more attention, because I'm not breathless. I don't feel like this run is harder than it normally is. So what's actually going on? And so it just forced me to pay attention to what's going on in my body a little bit more, so that I've got internally an extra data point that I can rely on to go, hey, generally you're feeling good, but here's a marker which is suggesting that is not doing so well. So if I didn't have the the live data in front of me, that feed in front of me, then I would have been like, oh, I would have been fine. It was like a normal training session, but really I'd redlined it the
Actually,
whole way
no.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then probably would have woken up feeling a little bit more broken the next day. And my effort level was way higher than I perceived it to be. So when you start to marry the two of them up, you start to get a much better sense of when you need to dial it down and when you should be ramping it up. And that's really, really helpful information, because otherwise you can just be like, hey, I'm always feeling good. But really your heart's working at
Actually,
180,
no.
190 during every workout,
Exactly.
and you're redlining it every time, and you're going to have a massive crash, and you're going to keep going through that cycle of crashing, ramping up, crashing, ramping up, crashing, ramping up.
Yeah.
And that's not a healthy cycle to be in, because
Definitely not.
as much as the we talk about stress, and there's that balance between getting the right level of stress from exercise. Like, exercise is a good stress, but if you push it beyond that threshold that you're capable of handling in that moment, it ends up being a bad stress. And then
Definitely.
people tend to do that a lot, especially types of people who are all about like pushing themselves. You push yourselves constantly like that, your body's always redlining it, and then it's actually, the exercise is having a negative effect on your overall health, because you're overtrained, basically.
Definitely. And I think that's where something like Whoop is really, really useful. When and I love Whoop, and I probably will get it again at some point when I can. And what I found really interesting is that I would wake up and think that I've had a good night's sleep, and Whoop would often tell me differently. And at first it would be like, oh man, that's really annoying. But actually, I used to find that data really, really useful, because it's like, why haven't I slept well? And that would change my training for the day. And that would be useful for me, because actually it is that warning signal that, you haven't rested as well as you thought, and you haven't slept as deeply as you thought you had. You haven't had as much REM sleep as you thought you had. So be careful how much strain you take on today. Be careful how much training you do today. I mean, sometimes you can't help it. Like, if I was marathon training, then tough. Like, you're just going to have to push through it. But it would make you more mindful of the sort of thing that you were about to do. And maybe you take it a little bit easier through that long run, or maybe you wouldn't do, I don't know, what you were intending to do, or maybe you would just rest a little bit more during your day. So I think that having, in particular, Whoop, just over any other data was really useful for me. And I really like that respiratory stuff that they have as well. That was always a really useful thing, because often it would tell you potentially if there was maybe an illness coming or something like that, because it would often shoot up, wouldn't it? If your respiratory rate, if you were starting to feel poorly, it would basically up about a couple of points, wouldn't it?
It's like if you're getting they're using the respiratory analysis along with as a predictive tool for COVID.
So, that's really interesting.
So it's like, so it's more like if you get a bit more of a severe illness, like you can get a cold, but your respiratory illness, like, it doesn't jump significantly. It's more about the significant jump, and then it tells you that something serious is coming. Yeah, something is up. So that's what's really interesting about it. Is if that jumps by a bit, then you're like, oh shit.
Hang on a minute.
And then you match that. Yeah, you match that with low HRV, so basically lower tolerance to stress, and a higher heart rate, and then that's like the holy trinity of, I need to fucking rest.
Or that there's your warning. And I wish I'd had the Whoop when I think I potentially had COVID. I would love to have seen whether there would have been that big jump in respiratory, because good God, I was ill. So
that's when that was also it's funny because that's not when they were making a big deal out of tracking.
No.
And then they realized, hey, it might have some predictive benefits. So then they started putting it into the information user interface that you could see. And but some interesting stuff. I think, like, basically the night or 2 nights before I started getting symptoms, I had a rock bottom recovery. So I was in the red zone, and my heart rate was super high. When and bearing in mind that the heart rate with Whoop is taken in the deepest, like in your last 5 minutes of deep sleep that it calculates, right?
Okay.
So when you're sleeping is your heart rate's lower as well. You're lying down, and generally speaking, it's going to be lower. So it was pretty freaking high. And then a couple of days later, I was like, okay, I feel like I've got symptoms now. And so when I see that combination, I'm like, I need to chill, or I've done something which isn't conducive to good recovery for me. Like if I eat a lot of food, especially late.
That's a big one, isn't it? Well? Yeah, massive.
Yeah, I can see it. Like my heart rate goes up and my HRV goes down, and I just have worse quality sleep. It's incredible. So it's an incredible thing. It's like without fail, every time I'm like, just stop doing that to yourself.
But that's life. I don't think, as long as you know that if you have like snacks late at night or you're out or whatever, you know that that's going to happen, and that's fine. And then that can prepare you so that you know next day that maybe you aren't going to take on as much training or whatever it is. But I know that's a big one for me.
There's a time and a place, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't think you can be like, no. It's like, I know if I go to bed too late, or I go, I'm very strict about my bedtime. If I surpass that and go to bed really late, that's it. You can kiss goodbye to any good Whoop tracking data. So it's going to be, yes, you have not recovered at all, and your HRV is like HRV is what, 10. So that's the way it is. So, but it is good. And did you read about the guy that had the Whoop tracker, and he noticed like that his HRV just dropped suddenly, and his respiratory went up, and his heart rate was going mental, and it was signaling that he was quite young. He was like 32 or something, and he was about to have a heart attack. And because he noticed his stats, I thought it was amazing that he went to hospital, because he was like, no, something's off. I'm reading my data and it doesn't seem right. And isn't that incredible that he basically admitted himself to hospital because he saw his stats and was like, something's up. And he saved himself, basically. Yeah, exactly. That's amazing.
Yeah, this like that's the power of having that kind of data in your hands.
Yeah, I want it again.
Yeah, exactly. Get on it. It's it makes it makes a difference. It makes a difference to have that kind of stuff. It just tells you what's going on within you. But ultimately, it's also you don't want to be like waking up in the morning and basing your day so extremely on what the day is telling you.
No, I know.
It can't be a case of like, oh crap, I got like a 20% recovery today. I'm just not gonna.
I was doing that a bit though.
Yeah, I mean it happens, right? It happens. You just look at it, and like especially because when everything was open and we'd be doing a wrestling class on a Sunday with Sylvie, it's like 2 hours of intense workout, right? So I'd be so disappointed if I woke up in a red recovery. I was like, oh man, I'm going to suck today.
Oh, and, that's exactly it. Yeah. And lo and behold, you would.
And you would feel it. But it's also like, okay, just make that judgment call. It's like, because I know I'm not going to be training that hard in the red all the time. It's just like, all right, I'm just going to do it anyway. I'm going to. It's part of the plan. It's kind of it gives you an understanding of where you're at, and you should make some better judgments based off of what it gives you. And then also you start to learn more about how the data matches up with how you're feeling, and then so you can start to make even better calls about what you should be doing with yourself and what you should be doing with your body. But that also doesn't mean it's like, oh crap, I got 20%, I'm just going to lie in bed all day.
No,
you still got shit to do.
You still got to get up and get out.
Exactly.
Note your training, and note that if you're finding training harder, potentially that's why.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
And that would happen as well. It's like sometimes it's a strange one. It's like you'd wake up, you're like, oh, I feel like I woke up kind of naturally, didn't have to rely on anything. Feel like I got a bit of a bounce. Oh crap, it's telling me.
And then you look at Whoop and you're like, shit.
I'm like, shut up. You're lying to me. It's like, I don't want to listen to you. I want to push it today. But exactly. But then it'll get to like 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's like, I'm actually kind of spent. it was actually right. It just foresaw what was about to happen. Yeah. But then there is the odd time where it's like, no, actually I do genuinely feel okay. Yeah. And go for a bit of a training session. I was like, it It didn't go bad. It didn't represent. But it's, again, that's very, very rare. I've been using it for a long time now, so I've got a lot of experience and data with it. So it's just in most, pretty much, like, it's very, very clever. It will tell you.
The data's not wrong. It's just, it is what it is. So
yeah. I mean, like, sometimes it can be, because just how you wear it, you know, you got those anomalies as well. Like it happened once where, because you know, I was in the shower, you wash it, and then I took it off and I put it to the side, but it still had water on the sensors. So the sensors thought that it was strapped to me because it was just something that it had, which was triggering them to go off.
Yeah.
And then, like 15 minutes later, it goes, "Oh, we've recorded an elevated heart rate, and and we think it's a workout. Just tell us what you did." And, like, you know, put in the workout that you did. Looked at it, I was like, average heart rate 200 beats per minute for like 15 minutes straight. And I went, "Oh shit, what the hell was this?" And I realized it's because, you know, I didn't clean the sensor off properly and just left this thing lying there while I was showering, and then it just gave me this wild reading, and I got like a strain level of, like, a ridiculously high strain level. But the thing is, it keeps that data recorded. You can't delete the heart rate data. So it's like, it's showing up as like I've had like a 15 or a 16 strain level day out of like 21 strains. So that's a pretty high, it's a high strain. And it's basically saying I pushed my body a lot. I didn't. I just left some water on it. So there's people out there who could, you know, like, if they're wearing it on their trainer's behest, and they're
just like that.
And they're like, you know, just drop it into water, or just like strap it to your dog and then just like let it go for a run. And
but why? That's pointless, though, isn't it? That's pointless. There's no point in that.
You're just not gonna get away with it. One of my clients always says to me, it's funny, because, like, you know, I meet my clients twice a week, and one of them always goes to me, like, you know, he's making progress, and he just goes, "Fuck's sake, man! I just know that every time I come to a session, you'll know if I haven't done anything, so I gotta do it."
Oh, do you look at his Whoop stats? Do you
No, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, this isn't related to Whoop. This is more like just like lying to yourself, right? It's like if you were strapping a Whoop to a dog and letting it go for a run and being like, just see, you know, like, if because you're doing it and working with someone and you're just like, I don't want to give them bad data. I want to say that I've been doing, you know, it's like the extreme level of just like lying to somebody for accountability. It's but he comes into sessions, he's like, you know, I just know that if I don't do it, you'll know. He's like, I can't go, like, I could probably get away with maybe not doing it for a week, but if it's 2 weeks and nothing's changed, I know you'll know. Is that you just look at me, you'll know something's up. So I just can't get away with not doing this stuff. Like, I just want to, and he says it to me as well. I just want to cheat. I want to cheat all the time, but I'm not going to, because I know you'll know.
That's the thing. That's brilliant. I get a lot of people coming in and going, "I've done nothing. I'm really sorry, I've done nothing." It's like proper confession time. You know, it's like, I didn't do any of the exercises, I'm really sorry. And I'm like, fine, don't worry, it's okay. That's what happens, life happens, it's okay. But it's so good, like, confession time. I haven't done anything, I'm so sorry. Chill, you're cool, it's all right.
I think a lot of that is to do, a lot of it is to do with the old school mentality, or like the old school stereotype of what personal trainer is, right? It's like, you know, it's just somebody who's like, if you like do this or get out, go hard or go home, and it's like, cracking the whip. There we go, exactly. Always cracking a whip. And whereas, you know, there's this, it's more of a shift, at least, you know, the way we approach it is like, it's a coaching approach. You're not like instructing and forcing anybody to do anything. It's like, hey, how much does this mean to you? And everything that comes with that. And all right, I'm going to help you be accountable. And don't, like, if you're coming at me like it's a confession, it's like, okay, well, we need to figure out why you feel like it's a confession, right? It's like, what's gone on so that
I'm not like that.
It's like, what's gone on so that you haven't, why you haven't done this thing? How can we then? It's a learning curve, right? It's first of all, it's considered like it's always bad, bad behavior, bad attitude. I'm going to get a beating for it from my trainer. But it's not. It's like, okay, well, so then you become apprehensive about sharing that information, and you just come in, you're like, oh my God, confessional. And then you feel bad about it, but actually the truth is like, okay, well, let's actually look at why these things didn't go the way they're supposed to. Why didn't you do what you were supposed to execute that you know is good for you and you know is going to help you? All these good reasons for doing this thing, but there's always something there's something here that's stopping you from doing that. So let's actually look at that. Let's analyze that situation and go, all right, it was this, this, and this. So now that we know that, we can preempt that. You become a lot more aware of that scenario where it means that you don't do let's say the exercises that you need to do to get out of back pain. So instead of it being a confession when you feel awful about it, let's just pull out of that situation a little bit, analyze it and say, what were the things that didn't work out, why it caused you to not do the work that you were supposed to do. And now that you know that, now that you become a lot more aware of it, we can preempt those and make sure that you are doing the things that you need to be doing. So it's like that level of accountability is not about punishment. It's about figuring out how to do your thing as best as you can.
Exactly. And I think another thing, just with clients and them coming in and doing basically that whole big confession thing, is like, I often say to them, it's like, I'm not going to put pressure on you. Like, this is about you. This is about you finding the time to fit these exercises into your life, and me putting a huge amount of pressure on you to get that done isn't going to help you. So it's like, let's work out how much you can fit into your day. I work with a lot of women, and the mainstay of my clients are probably mothers. So it's like, what can you fit into your day? When can you fit it in? And it's almost like you're trying to draw up not a contract with your client, but almost just like a if you can do this for me, then we can work and get some more done. And so I guess my way is that it's maybe not as constructed as yours, but it's like, tell me how much you can fit into your day. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Okay, great. So these are the exercises that you can do within that time frame. Brilliant. And it's almost like maybe my approach is more like softly, let's try and put it in here and move it round to there, and just see if they can make that time frame work, so that it's, and I'm sure you're the same in just a kind of maybe a more concise way, but I'm like, what can you manage for me? And then we can work with that. And people generally want to do it. It's during things like holidays and Christmas and things like that, where they're like, I've done nothing, really sorry. Or I generally get an idea of a client and their personality through whether they've done the exercises or not. And it's like, okay, how can I help you to get the exercises done? If you're this sort of person, like, I don't know about you, but you can generally tell whether they're going to do it or not, whether they want to get this done. And sometimes people really surprise me. They're like, I've done half an hour every day since our last session. I feel so much better. And it's like, wow, and you've got a 6-week-old. That's unbelievable. That's amazing. Right. Well, this is what we can do now. This is what we can work with. So I think it's about learning your clients and their personalities as well, and seeing how they fit these, it's really like extracurricular exercises into their week to help them improve.
And like, I mean, you gave a good example there as well. It's like somebody who's got a 6-week-old, you know, you're thinking, where the hell do you get the time? But they made it happen.
You do.
And
yeah.
So there's like a level of commitment that comes with the level of importance that you place on the outcome that you're going for.
Yeah.
And it's just, in a lot of cases, bringing that out as well. I've been lucky enough to essentially, over the years, work out what kind of person I want to be working with. And if I'm getting a sense beforehand that they're going to kind of half-ass it, I'm like, I'm not interested.
Okay.
I'm just not going to. I'm not going to deal with that, because whatever effort I put in, obviously the other side of the equation is you doing it so that you get the result that you want. And it just doesn't happen if you're going to half-ass it, and then it's just not as interesting as well. So I just want I just want to work with people who show that there's going to be a level of commitment to achieving the thing that they want to achieve, and when that's there, it's like, that's exciting. You know, there's a lot more that works in the relationship when that exists. And it's also up to us to bring that out of the clients as well. Like
Definitely.
Before we start to work with them, it's like, they know, okay, this is who we are. This is the kind of person we want to work with. Are you that person? And if you are, great. If not, then I'm sorry, I'm not going to be the person for you. And that works out, because then it makes it like, with the people that I end up working with, they're moving forward, and they're constantly moving forward. Even when they have a bit of a back step, they've approached it differently to somebody who would have half-assed it. They've gone, what can I learn from this? And again, it's like, it's up to us to bring that out of our clients as well. But when we do, they're leveling up every single time, and it's and that's a beautiful thing to see. And it's also, it just takes experience. It just takes a bit of time to learn that this is how I actually want to work with people. And then, I've figured that out, and that's constantly improving, that's constantly changing as well. But yeah, essentially one of the things I'm always looking for is just, are you ready to do the thing that is necessary? And if you can't convince me of that, then I don't want to work with you.
And I think that's a really great thing to have. I think it takes quite a lot of confidence, and I suppose, or guts, to tell someone that you don't want to work with them. And I'm like, that's impressive. I don't think I have that ability like you have that ability. Yeah, it's like, and I think it's to do with that initial conversation and how you intake people as well. It's like, I do a lot of my, I suppose, intake through emails, and more often than not, they're not looking for long term. It's like 3 sessions, 5 sessions, whatever. So it's like, I can do that. I suppose the way we run our businesses is slightly different in that respect. But I really like that you're almost, it's like a two-way thing. And it's like, you have to put in the commitment. And listening to you, I'm like, that's something that I potentially need to get better at doing, is that initial conversation and actually seeing if they would be a good fit. Because for me, it's like, you've got back pain, yes, but it's like, you've got back pain. Are you ready to get out of that pain as well? I think that's an important conversation to have. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's like, they're showing that they're ready on a level when they've approached you. That takes a step
on a level.
And exactly. But then is beyond that is like, okay, this isn't a quick fix. It never is. This is about you changing certain things which are going to change your life so that you can actually achieve this thing. Yes or no, there are levels to that kind of commitment, but it's about bringing it out of people as well, because there's a certain, we've talked about it before as well, there's like a certain level of fear attached to making the change, because as much as you might be ready for it, there's things that you're going to lose from making that change. And like, even losing the pain can be a tricky thing, because
it's scary.
It's scary because you're so used to it. It's familiarity. It's like, here's a crazy thing. Is like, there's going to be tons of people who don't want to come out of lockdown because like,
but
got used to this way of life.
Institutionalized, it's that kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, you get used to the way of life, and then so going back into what we consider normal society, and finding that again there's going to be a bunch of people who's going to be very apprehensive about that. And for various reasons, but it goes to show like what we get used to, even when we're in a situation where essentially our liberties are highly curtailed. Even in that kind of scenario, you can get used to it, and going and getting somewhere where you're going to be living a better life. It's kind of scary, because you're like, there's a bunch of changes that I have to make, and I have to lose the thing that I'm familiar with. And that's what happens with pain as well. You can lose that thing that you're familiar with, and it ends up feeling like a pretty challenging process, a pretty scary process because of that. Even though it sounds crazy, but that doesn't matter. It's about what you're like as a human being, and it's more than just. It's a lot less to do with logic and a lot more to do with our emotions and our thoughts and stuff like that.
Absolutely. And just on that as well, it's like the brain, it relies on predictability, doesn't it? And so even, for example, if you're in pain or you're just in a situation where it isn't great, whatever it is, even even if it's a turbulent situation, your brain feels familiar and is comfortable in that situation or around that feeling of pain or that sensation or whatever it is that you might be going through. It's familiarity, and it's predictable. So the brain, us as human beings, we like that predictability, we like that familiarity. So to lose that and to actually move on and get out of pain or get out of a situation, whatever it is it's a scary thing. And it takes strength, and it takes a big leap, like getting out of pain and actually making steps towards that can be quite frightening for people. So I completely understand that, because it's unfamiliar territory, and people will always go to the familiar, and will always, even if it's chaotic and it's not the best thing for them, potentially they'll always go to the familiar. So to actually come away from that, it takes a big leap, and to make steps. It's like we talked about in a previous podcast. You have to make those little small incremental steps to work towards that bigger goal, and place one foot in front of the other, and know that you're going to get there, and that we are going into uncharted territory within your brain, within your body. And that does take, it is a big deal, and it takes confidence. So if you are listening to this and you're like, yeah, I'm ready to get out of pain, but I don't know how, and it is frightening, then know that working with a trainer, with someone like us, it can be really helpful, because we can guide you through those steps and help you when you're feeling like you're on shaky ground and unfamiliar territory.
Yeah, exactly. It's just you catch you and build you back up, and catch you, and it's just. I mean, there's even been situations where, like, a client has said, like, it's like you, they've gone. It's like there's a predictive power as well. It's like, at a certain stage during the process, I'll just start talking to them about something that I've seen happen at that stage in the process. And they're like, you read my mind. It's like, I was feeling this, and you've already caught it before I've even,
That's powerful.
before
That's
I've even
amazing.
spoken to you about it. And a big one is overwhelm, right? It's like, so I know at a certain stage, somebody can start to feel a bit overwhelmed by, the changes that they're going through, or are required, or is required of them to get where they want to get to. And then, so I have that. At that certain point, I notice it and I start seeing it come on. And then if they're saying certain things, then I'll go, all right, well, let's talk about this. Let's get it out of the way. And they go, okay, you know what, it feels like you've actually, it's like you've seen what's happening, seen what's coming without me having to talk about it. And you've allowed me to move through with a lot more confidence that this is the right thing for me to do. So, but when you're on your own, that's, you have to navigate that for yourself. You can get stuck for weeks at that kind of place, and you just start really questioning, like, is this even working for me? Should I even be doing this? I'm really super frustrated about this. And it's like, you hit that point where if you've tried in the past to deal with this, you've hit that point again and again and again and again. You're at that point again, you're just like, well, I'm just going to give up. But actually, because you've had a coach by your side to literally talk you through that and even preempt it from happening, you've got a hell of a lot more confidence that now that you're on the right path, and you'll keep going, you'll break through that barrier that's always held you back. Yeah,
that's great. That's really cool. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add to that. I just really like that. Predictability, what do they say? Or what do they do? If you can disclose or discuss any words or phrases that they might say, it might be useful.
Yeah, so
anything that they say?
First thing is like the habits start to drop off a little bit. So the things that they've started doing and is working well for them, it might start to drop. So the pattern of, the habits start to drop off is like, oh no, I haven't, like, say nutrition is an easy one. It's like, oh, I was doing okay, but then I've stopped doing this and this and this. And that information doesn't just come out. There's a line of questioning that comes with it. But basically, if like the nutrition starts to drop off a little bit, if it's like, oh, I'm just a little bit less diligent with the work that I'm doing, or if you start hearing things like, work has picked up, and this and this has happened, and so you start to build a picture of, okay, life's got busy, and we need to address that. So there's that aspect of it. So it's more in like the what they're talking about, how they're talking about it, and their kind of behavior around it as well. And if it sounds like there's some excuses coming as well, so that's another one. So it's like, oh, yeah, but like, this is happening and that's happening, and things are getting like really busy, and it's like, okay, let's do another situational analysis. These things are working for you. You've pulled yourself out from here, pulled yourself out of doing those things because other things are starting to fill your cup. Now, let's reprioritize. Let's remember why you're doing this. Basically, build that priority back up. Instead of that thing dropping third, fourth, fifth on the list again, let's bring that back up to number one on the list. It's like, hey, you've got a finite amount of time with me generally. So let's figure out how to make this back at number one priority so that you can keep moving forward and reduce that overwhelm. So things that you end up hearing is just like, habits drop off. If it sounds like, like excuses start to come into it, life starts to get super busy, and then that's when you just want to pick up on, hey, let's again pull out, analyze the situation, let's figure out how you can get yourself back on track.
That's really cool. The power of coaching right there, but also being able to analyze it and assess it and know that it's coming. That takes a serious amount of experience as well.
Just kind of like just being in tune with that kind of thing as well. It's just like, again, part of knowing, like you said, man, knowing your client, right? Is you get to know them through that and how they might be responding to certain stages of the journey. And it's a very powerful thing. And the more you get to know them, and then like, the more you get to know your clients, the more you get to know the kind of person you want to work with as well. Is a big one. So like, you could have, okay, this person is, super proactive. This person is open-minded. This person is, proactive, super, open-minded, and like you've got a list of them. But then if they fall off on like one thing, like if basically somebody's a bit too much of a control freak, and essentially, I've had it happen before. It's like they're trying to tell me how to do my job for them. I'm like, no, it's the other way around. So this isn't going to work if you're going to do that. And so obviously, again, having learned that through experience, is like everything else could be in place, but if you're going to be a super control freak, it's not going to work. So we're going to have to cut that out. So, or we're just going to have to cut the relationship. Basically, is like, I'm not the person who's going to help you out, because if you're going to be a super control freak about this, then how's that worked out for you in the past? Is like not very well. So in terms of getting where you want to get to, this is why you're here. So let's be coachable, let's be adaptable, let's be proactive, and like let's build those habits along the way as well, especially if you're not used to doing those things. But ultimately, I want to be able to see a glimmer of all of those kinds of things. Otherwise, it's just it just doesn't work out. And so that's the power of knowing your clients, so you can know more about who you want to work with, and also know like how you achieve results with people. So maybe that person can get results with a different kind of trainer.
I was going to say that.
But ultimately, I know this is the kind of person that I want to work with, and I know that these are the kind of people that I can help. So if we're matching up on that front, great. If we're not, then you're better off somewhere else.
Has anyone ever come back and gone, yeah, you're right, actually your way is better to you? Has anyone actually, like, have you, I don't know, had a situation where you've gone, oh no, they've gone, no, let's not work together, and then actually they've come back like a year or so later and gone, actually your way is right, and can I work with you now, please? Have you ever had that situation happen?
No, never like that. I see what you mean. It's never been like that. I don't know, maybe, I mean, I've had clients who have been away and then have come back, but more probably for other situations, not reasons that kind of situation. Rather than that kind of thing. But I think partly because it's a difficult thing to own up to as well, right? It's like if you're like, oh, you're right all along, and it's like some people might have a bit too much pride, a bit too much ego for it. But I mean, but then again, it hasn't happened. It hasn't really happened that much as well. So in the sense that if if I'm losing, I wonder actually, this is a good question to think, if I'm losing a potential client, because obviously there's like, there's loads of potential clients, and then there's a percentage of them
that
that
never
turn
come
into
back.
clients.
Yeah.
So it's usually been for other reasons. It could be like financial reasons, or like, now they're able to take it on, or it was just something. Yeah, probably mainly that reason. I haven't had it come up for other reasons.
It is interesting though, isn't it? It's like, it's definitely a trait of human nature. Can you go back and admit that you were wrong and actually this is the best thing? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I like to think that I could do that. I can't think of a situation where I've had to do it right now, but I would like to think that if I was a client, I could go back and go, yeah, sorry, you were right. Your way is definitely better.
And bow down.
I'm so sorry.
I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Like, yes, come in, child.
Come in, but first you have to bend down on your knees and kiss my ring finger and say that you were right all along.
Oh dear. I think if someone made me do that, I'd be like, actually, no, sorry, I've changed my mind.
I've changed my mind very quickly, yet again. But this time for a legitimate reason.
For definitely the right reasons this time, thanks. Oh,
but if they do that, then that's the beginning of a cult. Then you have a lot of power. I
don't want to run a cult. I'm not interested.
Come on, it'd be amazing. Like so many people, not just looking up to you, but worshipping
What's wrong with you?
There's nothing wrong with me. Who doesn't want to be worshipped? Come on. If you don't want to be worshipped, there's something wrong with you.
I'm not sure about the cult thing though, Taminda.
Taminda, I love how you threw that one in at that appropriate stage. It's fun. It's just hilarious just talking about it.
I know.
Talking about cults like that.
Cults.
You start to get really concerned about who you're hanging out with now. You're like, wait, why did this become a thing? Well, actually, here's the best bit about it. I got external validation. Can you please tell everybody listening why it sounds like a legitimate thing that I could have a cult? Because of your son.
So because of my poor boy. So last week I was scrolling Instagram, which doesn't happen often.
To each have our vices.
It doesn't. No, it does happen a little bit. And I was just scrolling, and then my son was looking at what I was scrolling at, and then he went, "Is that Corinda?" And it was a picture. I don't know if I can get it up quickly, but it was a picture of Jesus Christ. I can't get it quickly. It was a picture of Jesus Christ, but it was a meme that was like him pointing. And I just looked at my little boy, and I was like, "No, what?" He was like, "Oh, it looked like Corinda, mummy." I was like, "How many times have you seen Corinda? It's not him."
He knows, man. He knows. I have a likeness to a Messiah, is what he's saying. I'm telling you, all the evidence is stacking up for me to be able to have a cult.
What goes on in your mind? Is that what you're like, worship me, everyone? But then you don't have that sort of personality where you're like, I want hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and I want everyone to worship me. You're not really that sort of person. So I'm always like,
exactly.
What goes on in your brain?
I love when that happens, when it's like when people think you're a certain way. They've seen that model of you like all the time, and then you just throw in a curveball every now and then. It was like, wait, what? Where did that come from? I remember actually when, because you knew me through NKT, through neurocognitive therapy. So you've seen me basically. Yeah, so you just see me in like study groups. Serious
and like very, very like knowledgeable and quite quiet and calm and just quite sensible. Go on, carry on. But that was my image of Corinda.
Yeah, which is hilarious because like you see professional me, and then when you actually got the whoop, and we started a team in whoop, like of everybody that we knew who had whoop, and we were just like, hey, let's everybody get on the whoop, and we were having like a bit of banter and, you know, just helping each other out with, you know, what the data might mean, all that kind of stuff. And then you finally got it, and I threw you in the WhatsApp group as well. And then I started chatting some shit, and then you were like, who is this?
I was like, what have I joined?
No, do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I do. It was so you know the guy that all of you kept sending memes about, the black guy, the big guy. And you sent a meme, and I was like, yeah, him. And you kept sending them, and I was like, this isn't the Gorinda I know. Like, he's actually quite cheeky. I was like, this is a better version. I prefer this version to the sensible NKT version. This is better.
That was hilarious.
And, means I can be cheeky
and then
rude.
That's happened multiple times to me because, I think it's just, ever since I was a kid, I've just had this, like, you know, sensible, like, straight, narrow down. Yeah, right. So it's like, so people just think you are that way. And then I remember another time where, you know, where I used to work at the commercial gym, and one of the cleaners was like this, like, older, like I think in the 60s at the time, and then just like God-fearing woman. So when she heard me swear once, she was like, Corinda, I didn't know you were like that. And I probably said something heinous as well. It was probably awful, like between a group of us, and we were just chatting, and she was so shocked that I could even use the F word that everybody else thought it was just hilarious. And they're like, wait, you don't know, like, EG, what? And it's, it happens. It's happened to me multiple times. So when people do notice that, they're like, wait, that doesn't seem like you. I'm like, you don't know me.
Like, clearly didn't know you throughout the NKT time. But then I think I'm a bit like that. It's like, I seem very quiet and sensible, and then you actually get to know me, and I'm insane, basically. Legit
just to give you insight. I'm crazy. Like, no one wants to be my friend now.
No, everyone wants to be my friend because I am nuts.
Yes. It's funny. It's just it's just funny how that happens. You know, it's just like, it goes back to the conversation we had last week, which is about perception, isn't it? It's like, you know, perception is just a distortion of a slither of reality, or whatever it was that I said.
Absolutely.
And so, somebody has this perception of you, and then you just blow it out of the water. It's like, wait, you're the same person, but you're saying these completely different words and this completely different body language. Where did that even come from?
Who are you?
It's like, hey, it's like, well, you know, it's an important conversation as well, just to like realize that everybody has many facets to them.
Yes.
It's just, you know, different aspects of you come out along with different kinds of people.
Different situations.
Different situations. I have like several circles of friends, and it's like there's a different me that comes out with these different people.
What is going to be funny when we go back to NKT and now we know each other very well, and then we're like just saying silly things, and then people will be like, hang on a minute, you two aren't like this. We don't know these people, and we'll be like, it's just like, hang on a minute, they're different.
Like, who? It's like a Freaky Friday thing. It's like, it's just, you've had a body swap, like somebody else is in this brain, in this mind of yours. Is like, this is not who we remember you being.
This is not those two. Yeah. But it's true. It's like, I have different, obviously with your clients, with my clients, I'm completely different. Like, I'm a professional dude, and I don't swear, and I'm very, very like calm and quiet and on it. But then with my old friends, they'd be like, what? No, she's not like that at all. She's insane. Do you know what I mean? So it's that kind of thing. And it's just different people. That splice of what you're like and perception of reality the whole time. And it's not that you are, I don't know, a different person with different people. It's just that it's almost like you're allowed to be a certain way with certain people. You know, it's whether you feel comfortable being like that. And obviously when you're in a professional situation, you're not going to be your mental self. Do you know what I mean? Like, they get an idea that I am quite silly, but not, you know, I don't do that with clients. So
well, it's like toning down certain aspects and toning up other aspects based on the scenario that you're in. Because at the end of the day, it's like, Yeah, it's like if you're just going to act like an idiot, which is, fun with mates, but while you're
You
trying to
say
learn
that
something
like
in a
an
seminar,
idiot.
it's like, yes, often. It's like, but if you're going to do that and then you want to take that into a seminar and try and learn something, it's like, no, it's not going to work. So
No, I
let's,
know.
let's turn the dials on different aspects of the personality here.
Absolutely. And when I'm trying to learn, like I've got poker face on, and there's no silly, like I can't, I have to, that's my focus face. And I do it in training as well, like proper poker face, like training face, and like, just don't be silly near me because I don't want to know, because I'm trying to focus and get this done. So yeah, there's just different situations where I will be silly.
Yeah, exactly. All has a time and a place. Like,
Definitely.
tell me, so where does adaptability come into it for you? Because that's something that you thought would be a useful thing to talk about.
Yeah. So I watched the film Castaway during the week on my rest week, and it just got me thinking about how he had to be so adaptable. Obviously, that's a very extreme situation for anyone that hasn't watched Castaway. It's about a guy who works for FedEx, and his plane goes down in the middle of nowhere, and he basically lands on a desert island, which it amuses me because it's everyone's dream, isn't it, to be on a desert island? But actually, it's fierce. It's a wild place without anything, and it's fierce, and it's hard, and it's aggressive, and you have to be adaptable for that kind of thing. And it just got me thinking about, am I adaptable? Am I good with adaptable situations? Like, I think we've all been through a really big and difficult situation recently with the pandemic and lockdown, and have I been adaptable to it? And I would definitely say that I'm pretty good with change. And this was a conversation that I was having with someone during the week about how they didn't think that they were good with change, and I can't really remember why it came up, but I am pretty good with change. I feel like you could plonk me in a situation, and yeah, it might take me a couple of days, but I would adapt well. And now I'm trying to think, why am I like that? And I think it's because I like to absorb the environment around me. It's like I'm not very set in my ways in that respect. Like I can just try function within a new environment. And you're going to have to help me with this, G, because I'm trying to remember. I think this is from Live Wired and a book by David Engelman, but it's about, oh no, it's gone. Sorry. It was just about, I don't know, like bringing yourself into different situations and your brain. That was it. So say you go on a foreign holiday and you're taking in so much more information because you're in a new setting, and your brain's almost like woken up to different things, and it's taking in things that you might not normally take in a normal scenario. And I feel like I'm quite good at doing that just in every day. And so I feel like I can adapt to, I take in lots of different stuff, and it's not just, right, I'm on my walk with my dog and this is the same thing and it's very boring. It's like you take in different things every single time. And I like to try and be open to that kind of stuff. It's like, what's happening today and what's new about this scenario today and what am I listening to? And so I feel like, yes, I'm an adaptable person, and I think it's a useful skill. But I guess this conversation would be, how can you become more adaptable, and what does it take? It's like, I guess I just have that sort of personality where I can just crack on and get on with it. And I don't know why I have that personality, but I do. And maybe that's something we can discuss.
Yeah,
What
that's
are you
interesting.
like?
What am I like? Well, first of all, that you're seeking novelty in everything that you do.
Yes, I do.
So because
Yeah.
you go on like a pretty similar walk, you go on a pretty similar run route each time, right?
Yes.
Or it's the same, but each time you're doing it, is it like an automatic thing for you to just look out for something different? Or do you tell yourself, oh, today I'm going to pay
No,
attention to the color of the leaves or whatever?
no, it's automatic. It's like, and that's one of the reasons, like, why I like being creative, and why I like taking photos, and I'm into photography, because when you take a photo, that one moment in time never happens ever again. Do you see what I mean? It's like the sun's always going to be slightly different, the way the leaves are, whatever it is that you're taking a photo of. And I guess I've almost like honed myself to look out for that. It's like, what's different about this scenario today? Or even when I'm running, it's like, not even like, what can I do? It's like, what am I noticing? What's different? Maybe I go on a slightly different route, or maybe it's, I don't know, it's automatic with me. I always try and take in the new, even when I'm in London. I've been in London many times, but it's like when I was in London the other day, I saw something that I'd never seen before, and I took photos of it, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. So yeah, you're always looking out for new experiences. I think that's why I enjoy.
Interesting. So it's like, I mean, in your own view as well, would you say you're quite an open person?
Yes, very. Yeah. And I like to take in new things, and I feel like I can handle it as well. It's like I went traveling on my own for a really long time, and it was fine. It wasn't something that scared me. It was like, yeah, cool, bring it. And just plonk me in the middle of wherever, and I'll be able to figure it out. It might be scary, but I'll figure it.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think it's mostly like, a high level of openness usually translates to a high level of creativity. And if you're being creative, you require the ability to see novelty in everything that you do. So yeah, that's really fascinating. And what else? So then the person who you were talking about adaptability with, or being okay with change, was this person the opposite? Are they not okay with change? Or like?
Oh no, it wasn't a person. It was just what the film brought up for me.
Okay. It was just that there was you said there was something that you were talking about change with someone else, right?
Oh, with my friend, yes. Yeah.
So,
no, she wasn't open to change. She said she found it hard, and she always thought that she was quite adaptable and open to change. And actually, when push came to shove, it was actually quite hard for her, within the situation that she found herself in.
Yeah. So this is what I'm interested in, is like what this person was saying about what was hard to change. Like, did she kind of divulge that?
So it was a living situation, and just moving from one place to another. And she was just saying that she thought that she would be fine, but actually it was harder to do than she realized. And I actually think a lot of people find it harder. If we could maybe place it within what we do, again, it's coming back to that idea that change is scary, right? And even if it's something that you've wanted to do, like move house or get out of back pain, it takes adaptability to be able to firstly know that you're in enough pain that you want to get out of it, to find someone that you want their help from, but then to actually create the changes within your everyday week to feel better and get out of pain. So yeah,
because what I'm trying to figure out is, like, if you have had conversations with people who aren't as open to change, I'm just wondering, like, what is it about them, what they think it is about them that has made it difficult for them to change? Is that come up?
I think it's the amount of time. So with my friend, it was the amount of time that she's been in one address, one place, and then moving away from that. I think people like to hold on to things, right? Whether something's not serving them or whatever. For example, say you're in a living space and it's too small, so you want to move somewhere that's bigger. It's not serving you anymore, but it's actually quite hard to let go of something where you feel comfortable. Again, it's coming back to that thing of the brain's a predicting machine. And even if that space you've outgrown or it's not serving you anymore, sometimes it's difficult to let go of things like that, because you're then moving into unfamiliar territory and you don't know what's going to happen. And in the long run it's going to be better for you, but it's scary because it's unfamiliar. Whereas I think, and I don't know why I'm like this, but I almost thrive off unfamiliarity. I don't know, you could maybe look into that from a psychological point of view, but I like looking for differences, and I don't know, I don't mind change. So I don't know, maybe that makes me a certain sort of person. Tell me what you think you are.
I just want to ask you about you again.
Oh, you want to carry on? Okay.
Yeah.
But also, this is something else that I was thinking as well. Like you said about creativity, and my mum was always really sad when I gave up music for good. And she was like, "But you were so good at it, and you were, it was the way you were going to go, and you're so creative, and you need that emotional outlet." And I was like, "Mum, don't even worry. Creative is creative." And you can create creativity in whatever you're doing. So I went into a marketing job and I was just as creative, but it was creating stuff that became physical product. And now I'm creative in that I like taking photos, and I make that quite creative, and I make it quite artsy. So the creative is always there. It's just changed and morphed into something else. So maybe it is that I have a creative nature. I don't know.
The creative gene is, yeah, that's interesting.
But it's not even a gene, because
yeah,
I was going to say my parents aren't musical or massively creative, so I don't know if you could say it was genetic either. So
skipped a
I don't know where it's
generation.
come from. Or a few, don't know. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's I mean, yeah, because that's interesting, because it's like, so you kind of crave novelty and you really like it, but that's also, so you have a higher threshold for novelty potentially compared to most people, because there's novelty to the extent where it can be paralyzing. So it's like there's too much novelty here and your brain just shuts down, right? It's like
Yeah, I see that.
And it can that can have a profound effect on you, whether it's like excessively positive novelty that can still change you and that can still be overwhelming. Excessively negative novelty is like, everything that you do, and like, say a bomb just went off outside now, like everything about that situation is going to be fucked up. So there's continuous negative novelty coming at
And
me.
I've been in one of those situations, haven't I? So I've been in a very negative, novel situation. I've been in the middle of a tsunami. So carry on, but I can describe that for you as well if you like, and give you what happened to me afterwards.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that, because we can juxtapose that to you seeing positive novelty in every scenario in every day. What did that do for you? So a little bit of background.
Yeah,
first,
so
probably, because that's a pretty big story.
Yeah, it's a massive story. So my friends and I were in Thailand. Well, no, I was in Thailand actually, and we wanted to go to one of the islands it's one of the popular islands within Thailand, and while I was there, they were like, "Can you just go to all the travel agents and try and get us huts in this particular island?" The island's called Koh Phi Phi, and it looks like a figure of 8. It's like an infinity kind of island. It kind of goes down and into a point in the center, and we wanted huts there. And so when I was in Thailand traveling around, and I was doing Thai boxing at the time, like I went to every single travel agent in the area that I was in, and there was nothing. There was no accommodation. There was nothing. And everyone was getting really stressed, and they were like, "Oh, just go ring up, find some more accommodation. Like, we've got to get there. Like, we've got our flights. We've got to go. We've got to get there. We need these huts there." And it just wasn't happening. So at the last minute, we changed our plans. So this was around Christmas 2004, which is when the tsunami hit. And at the last minute, because we couldn't get the huts that we needed, the amount that we needed, we changed our plans, and we ended up in Bangkok, in Thailand. And we had Christmas Day there. We had, it was Christmas Day. And then I woke up in this hotel on Boxing Day, so the whole room shaking, like the whole room was just vibrating. And in my kind of weird hungover state, I was like, "Why are they doing work now? It's Boxing Day. Why Thailand's so are they doing work to the hotel on Boxing Day? And so I got up and I opened the window, and it looked like it was raining, but it was sunny. I shut the windows and I went into the other room because we were in quite a posh hotel. I opened the windows and it was sunny. And the whole building was vibrating at the time. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, and went back to bed. And then the next minute, my mate calls and she was like, I don't want to worry you, but there's been a massive earthquake and we need to leave the hotel. And so we all just kind of got up, got out and like put our bags in. And we got into the cab, got into a taxi, and we were on our way somewhere else. We were actually supposed to be on the way to the airport, but we had to change our plans. So we were on the way to another hotel, and the cab driver said, oh, there's been a tsunami or this big wave. And a couple of our mates were in one of the islands, and we were like, oh, that's not good. And then all the reports started to come in about what was happening. And I remember being in this other hotel room, and the TV was on, and I had like a couple of mates in one side, a couple of mates in the other, and I was sat on the bed watching the TV. And everyone was arguing. We were like, no, let's go to the airport now. We're just going to get on a plane. It'll be fine. Like, we don't know what's going on. Everyone was like just arguing. And then this like scene came up on the TV of just this mudslide. And there's no censorship in Thailand. Like, there was just dead bodies everywhere, and there were just people floating. And it was like all the reports were just starting to come in. And it just flashed up on the screen. It was a helicopter shot, and it was just this mudslide. And I was like, oh, shit, that looks bad. And then it just flashed up Koh Phi Phi. And that was where we were supposed to be, like in the middle, down, like where we were supposed to be. Like, it was just, there was no one. There was just dead bodies floating everywhere. And it was like, everyone just stopped and was like, holy shit, we're not going anywhere. This is massive. Like, and then people started calling us, like our parents started calling us, where are you? You're all right. What's going on? And it just like, and all the reports, like, even though we were in the middle of it, we were kind of removed from it because we weren't where we were supposed to be. We weren't on this island. We were in Bangkok, and the reports just started coming in, and it was just crazy. It was very, very weird to be in the middle of what actually we had no idea at the time, like what was going on. We had no idea just how big it was. When you're in it, you've got no idea. Like, England had more reports on it than we did. We had no clue. And then it just started to get worse and worse and worse. And it was bizarre being in the middle of it. And like, people were walking around Bangkok, and we actually went to another island. People were walking around like vets, like they looked like they'd been at war. They were just shell shocked walking around. They'd obviously been in the middle of the middle of the tsunami. And it messes with you. It really did. Like, everyone was really messed up from it. No one could sleep. No one would go in the water. Everyone was just shell shocked. And I had to go to Australia after that. And I just remember being in Australia, like, my whole body shut down, like, without going into it. I didn't have a period for about 7 months, which means that my body had gone into pure shock. Like, I was having really weird nightmares. I was having stomach problems. I couldn't be near the sea. Like, I think I possibly had a bit of PTSD, to be fair.
Yeah, sure.
And it lasted quite a while. It actually, like, all of us were quite messed up for quite a long time, considering that we were slightly removed from the situation, but we potentially would have been in that situation had everything worked out. We potentially would have died. We were all quite messed up. And even now, I do get a little bit funny about the sea. I'll look out and check that the sea hasn't regressed and isn't coming back in. Like, I remember I used to cycle to work in Melbourne, and I would just used to cycle on the promenade looking at the sea, making sure that it wasn't going out and pulling away. Like, it was quite a big deal. So that was traumatic novelty for sure. But discuss.
He's like, yeah, take a little bit, but you can't take that much.
That was quite full on. My body went into proper shutdown afterwards, and I didn't even really realize. The thing with, I suppose, PTSD is that you don't really realize it's happening. It's like my body physically was messed up, like very strange dreams, like my whole digestion was messed up, and just quite traumatized from it all, I think. But something I did do was I went back to Thailand about 4 months later, And that really helped. I actually went back to Phuket, which is one of the areas that got hit quite badly, that I left just before it happened. And that helped to go back and be in that area and know that it wasn't going to happen again.
Yeah, exactly. Just exposing yourself to the area again, and like, so that was more like, okay, you're removed from it, you're in a safe place, but it was the idea that you were so close to actually being there. It was, and
but within the earthquake.
Yeah. And then
But
that really,
I think that messed everyone up, that we were so close to being in the middle of it, and we were so close to, there's no way we would have survived it. We would have been washed away in bed, 8 a.m. That's when it hit, Kopipi. That we wouldn't have even been awake, and we would have been washed away, and that would have been it. And it's a very, very surreal thing to think that had anything been slightly different within that scenario, had I been able to book those hotel beach huts and in that place, then yeah, I wouldn't be here. But also that we felt the earthquake. That the earthquake was literally rattling the hotel. So we were in it, but we were moved, and so not quite in it as other people were, but enough in it for it to be quite scary, I think.
See, I don't remember the aftermath of the earthquake. You were saying there were people walking around who had been shaken up by the earthquake as well.
Sorry, not that. No, sorry. So I hadn't really explained that. So after a while, when you were in the islands or when you're in Bangkok, you just see like these people that look like they've been at war, and basically they have survived, say, being in Phuket, which is one of the areas that got hit, and they survived being in that area, but they come to another island and they just looked shell-shocked, like what the hell just happened. I mean, it was huge. Like, was it 300,000 people died? I think it was huge. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, how long did you have to be there for before you went off to Australia?
We were there for about 4 weeks.
Even after that?
So there was a tsunami hit, and then we went to another island. We changed our plans because this was the weird thing. At the time, we didn't realise the impact that it had had. It was just like a big wave. Oh my God, awful. But then as we got onto this other island, the reports started to come in, and they just had the news on every night. And it was like, this is huge. And I know we must have been there for about 3-4 weeks. And then I went to Australia after that.
Yeah, right. So another 3-4 weeks after the whole tsunami. Wow. And then, yeah, I think that's like, that's a lot of, like you pointed out, is like, that's what happens when you get a lot of negative novelty, right? You just you end up with something like PTSD. And
without realizing, though, I think, you know, you don't really, it's only now that I talk about it now that I'm like, I potentially had a bit of PTSD. I just at the time, like, I suppose probably one of the big things is when your period stopped, that's like a high level of stress that you have no idea that you're dealing with. Like for a woman, like when your endocrine system starts to slow down and falter, there's a problem. So yeah,
fully. That's madness. And like, it's, you know, it's like going back to that whole like novelty in the brain thing is really interesting because your brain's always trying to predict the best course of action for you, right? So it's mostly a predictive machine in the sense of keeping you alive and keeping you surviving and helping you navigate through your environment. But it needs novelty as well to excel. And for you to excel as a human being as well, it needs like newness and challenge. And it's this interesting cycle that the way I view it is you gain more novelty so you can predict more things. You know, it's like you're looking for novel scenarios so that you become adapted to those novel scenarios so that you can have a better predictive model of the world. And so that's that constant, that's why you need novelty, is so that you can become a better predictor. And which is, it's interesting because the thing is it wants to stay as good a predictive machine as possible. It doesn't want the environment to change so that you feel you are safe. But at the same time, it needs novelty so that you become better at being safe as well, right?
Yeah.
And so that to me is always so fascinating. It's like a constant kind of it's a reminder. Like the brain likes to stay where it is because it's quite an energy intensive organ, and so the more it has to process, the more energy it requires. And from an
Yeah.
evolutionary perspective, we're looking at it as our function is to try and conserve as much energy as possible. So when you're going through a novel scenario, you are expending more energy, but you need to be able
Huge.
to do that so that you get better at conserving energy overall. Like it's like, it's expanding your boundaries out again so that you have more of a comfort zone. And that's the point of growth, essentially, right? Is like, there's no, it's not growing for the sake of growing. It's like, every time it's like, but what is it doing for your growth? It's like, yeah, but that's not the point. I feel like there's something missing, and everybody's talking about just growing. It's like, this is important for your growth. It's like, yeah, but why do I want to grow? It's like,
Yeah.
growth isn't the outcome I'm looking for. The outcome I'm looking for is to be better at something, or to,
Yeah.
again, going back to what we talk about, is like getting out of back pain, or to be a better human being, or to be better
Have a
at
better
this, or
life. Yeah.
have a better life, have a higher level of skill in the things that I really like. So it's never about just this growing for the sake of growing. And that's kind of like and that for me relates to life in that kind of way as well. It's like, okay, this is what your brain does so that it can become a better predictive model. It's like, this is what you're doing through life. It's like, you need that novelty and you need that challenge so you can get better at life. And so you can do more with the life that you're given. And what's interesting there is that's clearly a case, what you went through is clearly a case of too much novelty too quickly,
Yeah.
and it shuts you down. And
Yeah.
your next 7-8 months of life was not a good experience.
No.
And so that's where it's like that graded exposure to novelty comes into it. There's certain people who can handle loads of novelty all at once, but it's
I
I
don't
think it's
think it,
relatively,
especially in a
yeah.
negative situation. Like you look at army soldiers and war veterans, and they've had experience of similar situations or scenarios where it's unpredictable and they don't know what's going to happen, and it's a dangerous situation, and they come back and they have high levels of PTSD, and they don't know how to function within society and within their life. So, I mean, mine was a little bit different to that, obviously, but
But
similar in ways.
there's like a high suicide. There's a high suicide rate amongst veterans as well, right?
Yeah.
It's like, because just like you can't integrate back into society. It's like your purpose for your environment is like, okay, you being on high alert was suitable for your environment when you're in a war scenario, and you might die any moment. But then you bring that back into everyday life. It's and you're struggling to adapt to that. Then yeah, you're out of sync with your environment, and that's a big problem.
And isn't that something to do with like the interoception thing that Huberman talks about, where if your internal sensation is quicker than your external, you'll know this better than me, but like when time feels like it's going slowly, but inside you're wound up. I wonder if veterans have that, where they're so on high alert and they're so vigilant and they're hypersensitive to everything, but the external world is going slowly, and you're going to have to explain this bit for me, G, but there's a mismatch of sensation and interoception to their external environment, right?
Yes, yeah,
I
yeah, no,
remember
you
what
did
it
a good
is.
job. Yeah,
Okay.
no, that's essentially it. That is essentially it. It's like on an everyday level, it's like you and I could, like, we might be in a rush to go somewhere, but then we get held up, like, okay, say I've got to be somewhere in 20 minutes. And the tube journey is like, City Map is telling me it's going to take me 22 minutes to get there. So I'm trying to do everything I can to like cut corners to get there in
Sure.
18 minutes. So I'm like 2 minutes ahead of time. And so when you get to the tube station, and then it says on the sign it's going to be 5 minutes till your next tube comes here, that 5 minutes feels like fucking forever, because
Forever.
you're
Yeah.
just like internally, like you described, you're wound up, but external world is telling you got to wait 5 minutes. So that 5 minutes feels like the longest, a really, really long time, because you're passing time a lot more quickly internally versus what the situation is telling you externally. So there's that mismatch. And so you have that mismatch, and then you're not able to. Yeah, I guess it has stuff to do with adaptability as well, but you have that mismatch, and that's why you have that feeling. Whereas if I was in sync with my environment, then I feel pretty calm. It's that beautiful balance between calm and alert. And whereas here, that pushes you to being agitated, so you're too alert, you're not calm enough, you're high arousal and negative valence, or you go the other way, and you could be super chilling, and time is moving quickly outside of you, and you're just like, whoa, can't believe time moved that fast. You can get them in different scenarios, but I think it's really interesting to explore, because there's times where, like, entering a bit of a flow state, where it happens to me in conversation. The most obvious times it happens to me is in conversations, and if I'm doing jits as well, so doing jiu-jitsu. Is because that's a skill, and there's a skill acquisition. Then you can be rolling with certain kinds of people who are just above your level, so you're hitting that challenge, novelty sweet spot, that challenge to skills sweet spot as well. As okay, it's like a little bit beyond what I'm capable of, so it's making me focus a little bit more. It's novel enough because I'm training with different people. It's a physical challenge. I'm using my whole body as well as using my mind, so you're like super present, and then time just like you feel like you've entered a time warp, and and you can just go through, end up far, far away. And that happens with conversations to me as well, especially where we're exploring things where, again, it's at the edge of my capacity. I'm like, I haven't really articulated this before, so let's just see where it goes. Or you've made me think of something new, and I'm like, okay, things are lighting up in my head, and I just need to figure out where I'm going with that. And it happened to me and my housemate. It happened to us several times, actually. There was one particular one which was hilarious, because like we sat down, I was finishing lunch, I was basically finishing lunch, and he came in and started chatting to me. And then when we looked at the clock, it was 7:30 and it was dinner time.
Oh my God. Where did the time go? That's nuts.
We just like 6 hours had gone, literally 6 hours. It's like about 1:30 when I was like finishing my lunch, and then it was like 6 hours. Like, how did that happen? I feel like, it's crazy when you put that into context, right? It's like 6 hours are gone. I could fly from here to Dubai in that time.
Man.
So when you put it like that, you're like, what just happened? That is insane. That. And,
but that's a beautiful thing, though, isn't it? That you were so involved in this conversation that time just, I love that sort of stuff. And I feel like films do that to you as well. If you're so involved in the story, it's just 2 hours, 3 hours goes by so quickly. Or I have it with music as well. It kind of just transports me elsewhere.
Fully.
But
so that's like, that's really interesting, because sometimes time can feel like it's going really slowly while you're in that phase, but also in that sense, like in those instances, it feels like it goes really fast. So I'm trying to figure out, like, what is that difference? What makes time feel like it goes super slow? So I could look at the clock and be like, feel like we chatted for 6 hours, but it's only 2:30 now, instead of 7:30. So it's like, where would that why is that difference? But when you said that, it's like you can lose yourself in a good movie. Oh God. It's like, it's just well, no, it's true, but when the movie's good,
bad, when it's bad, it's like, oh my God.
It's like, because we watched Justice League a couple of weeks ago, right, or a few weeks ago, whenever it came out, and Lord have mercy, it's a 4-hour movie, right, and you're thinking, that's what they did. It's like, we're doing a recut, we're releasing this recut.
Don't have that in me.
Here's the thing, is like, for example, a Nolan movie, right? Or like, Dark Knight. For me, Dark Knight Rises was not good. I was disappointed in that movie, because I just feel like it wrapped up the whole franchise in like the whole trilogy. Like, franchise is the wrong word. This is definitely a trilogy. It wrapped up the trilogy in just like this. It was just trying to be too neat. It was trying to tell too much of a story all at once. And it was 2 hours, 45 minutes, but it goes by super quickly, right? It's like you can watch that movie in 2 hours, 45 minutes. And you're like, I can't believe that's gone by. And to be fair, I think it would have been an excellent movie if it was actually 4 hours long. That movie needed to be 4 hours long, and it wouldn't have felt like it was 4 hours.
Okay.
Whereas Justice League, God. We got we wanted to watch it in 2 stages, right? We were like, okay, we'll watch one on Saturday evening and watch one on Sunday evening.
Right.
And then when we got to Saturday evening, we were like, okay, we'll pause it here. So, we're halfway through, we've got a couple hours left. When we pressed pause and we looked at the time, it was like, wait, it's only been an hour and 10 minutes. What the hell? How slow is this film? It's like the pacing of the movie is completely off, right? And it's like, it's, oh God, there's just so many things I could say about it. There's so many people who are loving the movie up as well. I'm like, are your standards that low? That's all I keep thinking.
Wow.
I'm like, from a purely structural point of view, this movie, to me, I'm sorry to say, because it's a difficult thing to make a movie. It's a difficult thing to do it well. And that, it was just trash. It was just utter trash to me.
Wow, disappointing.
And so, yeah, it's super disappointing. And then I'm like, it's like, this felt so slow. It was so long. It's like, how is anybody sitting through this and going, this is amazing? Because it's interesting because I'm going to go off on it again, aren't I? It's like, there's too many characters and they're trying to tell the stories of all the characters.
Oh, that's why it's so long.
Which don't have their own movie. It's also long for no reason at all as well. It's like the length. It's like, I was thinking there was going to be substance to it. It's like, I never watched the theatrical cut because I heard so many bad things about it. So I thought, I heard this new cut's going to come out. I'll just wait for that. And I thought, okay, it's 4 hours long. There's going to be a lot of meat to this and it should feel like it goes by. And I'm like, nope, this is just shit. It's not getting any better.
Oh, no.
It stays like this really odd pacing and it just keeps like, it's like there's moments where it's like a bit of action, then it's just like nothing for ages, and it was just all over the shop. So yeah. There's when you feel like, oh, this is a long time has gone by, but it hasn't, and that's in the worst possible time.
It's the
like
worst thing. When you're at work, that often used to happen to me. Used to happen to me when I was working in the music industry, and you'd look at your clock and an hour had gone past and you thought it was like the end of the day, and no, it's only been an hour. It's just awful. Whereas I don't get that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. You make your own time, make your own schedule. Like, this is good.
Great. Yeah.
That's a good time to leave it. This is a good time to leave it when we're talking about time. That's good stuff. Appreciate that, kablamo.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening to my constant rants.
That was well, it's interesting, right? It just gets us thinking about different things.
Yeah.
And thanks to everybody for tuning in. It's like, if you've got something to say about this episode, please let us know. Get in touch with us over Instagram at Evolve, Achieve, Thrive. And you can find us on Facebook like that as well if you prefer. Let us know what you think of the episode. And if you're enjoying the episodes, enjoying the podcast, please give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or the podcast medium of your choice, wherever they do ratings. Like Podchaser is another one. Please subscribe to the show through the app that you use to listen to podcasts on, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, you name it, we're there. Amazon Music. Give us a subscribe, and then that way you can be notified every time an episode is released, so you don't have to miss out. And let us know what you think of the podcast, and we look forward to catching you next time.
Yeah.